Guys, welcome back to another episode of the After Action Review. You know me, I'm Nick Guy, the world's most okayest Green Beret. And as per usual, we have a guest today who is more than okay. He's exceptional. Mr. George Haught is joining us, and he serves in what is unfortunately a bygone era. We as a nation tend to forget about the Vietnam War. It's still very much in our lexicon, in our textbooks and things like that, but we really did these men and women a disservice when they came home. And because of that, I don't think their stories were ever properly told and documented. So we're going to try to begin to rectify that by hearing a couple of veteran stories from Vietnam. Mr. Haught famously participated in the Battle of Hue City, and he has an incredible story to tell. Sir, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
So, real quick, just so that the audience knows, you were in the Marine Corps for 3 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay, 67 to 70.
Correct.
And what was your MOS?
0351.
Okay, and for the non-Marines watching, what is that?
That is an anti-assaultsman, which I was qualified with the machine gun, a 106 recoilless rifle, flamethrower.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Two of them I never used, so.
Okay.
And a 3.5 rocket launcher, which I did get to use in Hue City.
Okay. So real quick, before we go into your story, I have to know, because definitely a bygone era, flamethrowers. I mean, how awesome was shooting one of those? Because I'd imagine that would be pretty cool and unique experience. I mean, was there like a lot of heat coming back from you?
Oh yeah, you definitely had to make sure which way the wind was blowing.
Yeah, the consequences are a little more grievous than just pissing into the wind, right?
Yes. You could roast your chestnuts real quick.
Oh, man. So definitely a bygone era, like I said, but because of that, I think we have really missed out on documenting and listening to the veterans of those times' story. So I just want you to kick it off right from the beginning. And your story begins with the infill into Hue City, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Going into Hue, we had absolutely no idea what we were getting into. We were supposed to ground our gear, get on the trucks, and 12 hours we'd be back to pick up our stuff. 12 hours ended up turning into 31 days. We got into the city, started taking a tremendous amount of fire. We hopped off of the trucks, started returning fire. For us, it was one of many frontal assaults that we would end up having to make into the fire to get to the buildings where the fire was coming from. And as we were advancing across the street, on my right flank, there was a ARVN tank, a South Vietnamese tank, that had been taken out probably by a recoilless rifle. There was 2 ARVN soldiers out of the turret still smoldering. And then at that point, we knew that we had run into some major stuff. We eliminated our first resistance, and we started to go to our right and pick up 1-1, whom we came in, as a reaction force, because they had said they were pinned down. And as we're going through, we started picking up their dead, their wounded. We got to one point and we found our company commander all shot up, laying in a concertina wire. Looked like he had been bleeding for a long time, and just a pool of blood underneath him. And our company commander went up to him, and his only concern was us saving his Marines. So our company commander sent a platoon in the direction of fire we were hearing. We hooked up with Alpha 1-1 in a rice paddy. The point when we got there, somebody had given the order for him to take and get up and charge. So we got up and we went with them. There must have been 330 calibers in front of us, firing on to us, and get to running in the stinking mud halfway up your shin. It just saps your energy. You just feel the veins popping out in your neck, and people going down all around you. And you just have to take and keep going until we got to the point where we actually eliminated them. When we got to that point, then our main objective was to get into the MACV compound. We got there, and quarter of a mile from where we first entered the city to the MACV compound, it took us about 3 hours to fight our way that quarter of a mile. We got there, and we were there for a couple hours when we got orders to take and go across this bridge, Perfume River, and bring back a South Vietnamese general. Started across the bridge. We went over with 150 Marines. We got little beyond the crest of the bridge. 30 caliber started opening up on us from the other side. Rounds just ricocheting all in the girders, and people getting hit. Once again, we run at the 30 caliber, and my best friend was the first gun up going across. And when the call went out for guns up, he was running across to get set up. I was not far behind him, and he just got ripped in half. I mean, that 30 caliber just about tore him in half. I mean, you just see the green tracers going through him. Guy in front of me, he pulled out a couple grenades, took off running to the bunker, threw the grenades in, eliminated the machine gun, and made a left-hand turn, went down the street. River was on our left flank to where the gate was supposed to be. We get ourselves set up to take and go in there. And what we thought before was a vast amount of fire was absolutely nothing compared to what we encountered there. There was a 50 caliber machine gun in the tower on our left flank. There was a 30 caliber on our right flank. We had, I don't know how many people firing at us from on top of the wall, light machine guns, regular. We were just getting chewed up. We were firing back, and it's just like we were shooting paintballs at this huge structure. We probably 45 minutes or so, and I mean, just Marines scattered all over the street, dead, wounded, severely wounded. We ran out of ammunition. And the scariest damn thing when you're in a firefight, not being able to defend yourself. I mean, we just kind of looked around and just wondered, when are they going to come out and finish us? They got to know we're not firing back.
How long? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How long?
Yeah. How long were you in the city at this point when you went black on ammo? I understand that they
8-9 hours.
That okay. So it was supposed to be a 12-hour mission.
Yeah. We didn't bring any our packs, any extra ammunition or anything. Just supposed to be a piece of cake.
What was before we go back to your story, what was the objective of taking Hue City? Why was it of strategic importance? Or was that relayed to you guys?
No. We had absolutely no intelligence, and the city had never absolutely been touched by the war until that point. It was the social hub, more or less, of Vietnam, and a lot of cultural value. It was one of the provincial capitals, which was a detriment to us too, because we asked for artillery support, we asked for air support, asked for any support that we could get, and it was denied. And it was because of historic value. They didn't want to destroy the city.
Okay. So from the get-go, you guys were already handcuffed.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
we didn't know that until we were in and asked for the help initially when we started. We first come under fire, and I don't know if Alpha 11 had asked for any support other than us getting sent there.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So Murphy's already at work, just 8-9 hours in. All right. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I kind of had those questions in the back of my mind. So you guys, 8-9 hours into this op, and you're black on ammo. I mean, what are you guys doing next?
Well, sitting there wondering how you're going to die.
Good God.
You know, 19 years old, and that's your thinking. You know, how are you going to die? I mean, I had a 45. You know, maybe 20 rounds of ammunition. You know, but yeah, and fortunately, someone come from the other side at a truck, one of the 6.5s, and there was a 50 caliber on it, and he started opening up on the wall, diverted their attention enough that we could grab our dead, our wounded, and get the hell out of there. We lost a third of our company. Yeah. And the guy to come across had actually disobeyed an order. They were told to stand down.
The guys in the truck with the 50?
Yeah.
They were told to stand down.
They were told to stand down. He was a gunny, and he wasn't having that. I mean, he come over, and you know, like I said, and then we had let squad back at the bridge to secure it, and they hot wired some vehicles, and I mean, we were able to get the guys loaded up and everything, and we started going back across the bridge. I had one of my guys in the fireman carry. He had been shot 5 times, and we're probably halfway across the bridge, and they opened up with a recoilless rifle and hit one of the abutments. The damn bridge started shaking. We thought we was all going to go in the river. You know, fortunately, made it. And then we got back, and we got re-ammoed and everything in the MACB compound. And then we were supposed to go out at 2000 to pick up some CIA agents that were stuck there, or civilian operatives, as they referred to them. And about 1930, the North Vietnamese did us a favor and started opening up on the compound. So we ended up fighting out of the compound that night into the next morning. And if we'd have went out that night, we'd have probably lost more people than we have ever chose to want to lose. And then from there, it didn't get much better. We had certain objectives, and our first objective was the university, which was 200 yards, 2 football fields away from the MACB compound. It took us 3 days to take and get to the university, fighting across the streets. You would have either a 50 or a 30 caliber that was firing on your flanks, and you just have to take and run across the streets to stinking buildings and try and establish a foothold. We were running 4-man teams and go as far as you could until you ended up having to take and pick up. You guys got wounded or got killed, and get them back, and then the next team done the same thing. It was just totally unreal. And then we finally got to the university, and it's a big open courtyard, and there was one way in through the courtyard, and it was probably, well, the university was a city block, and within that courtyard you could see the dead civilians laying all through it. There was benches and little trees. We had to take and sprint across this courtyard to, our points of entry. And they done the normal. They threw smoke. We took off, 50 caliber in the tower down at the other end, started opening up. You could hear the Marines getting hit, crying out. You could hear the stuff around you just blowing up. You could hear the rounds as they exploded by you. Didn't crack like a regular round. They exploded by you. I got to my entry point. I had 3-man team and a 4-man fire team. I took 60 and opened up on the glass doors, blew the glass out of them. We run right in. As soon as I got in, I had 4 NVA coming at me. I opened up and killed them. Make a right to go down the corridor to start our sweep through. 6 more come down the hallway at me. I opened up and I killed them. I had a bunch of shit in me. My A gunner got grazed on one shoulder and right on the inner thigh. And then from there it was just going through room by room in the university and clearing it out. Much like the guys in Fallujah had to do with the city. And after you're in a building for a while and you're engaged in these firefights that just seem to go on and on, you start losing your hearing from the sound. The gun smoke just gets up in your nose and your eyes and feels like your nose is on fire. And then you just persevere through it. Took us 12 hours to take and clear out the university. They figured that we killed somewhere close to 1,000 NVA. I think we lost 35, 40 Marines, not counting the wounded. And it just nightmarish because you're in such close quarters and you can't communicate. I know we got to one of the upper levels and we was going through, and one of my ammo guys turned on me with his weapon. I dropped to my knees. I seen his muzzle flash 2 times. A rifle and bayonet come down past my left shoulder. Body hit me on the left side. I jumped up, but there wasn't left anything of him. He put 2 rounds right in his head. I mean, it just, there's nothing you can do but look at him, and then you have to move on. I mean, it was just the most brutal and nightmarish and bloody form of combat that you could ever get yourself into. And very fortunate to make it out alive.
And go ahead.
I thank God every day.
So if I'm doing the math correctly, this is all within the first 96 hours of the Battle of Hue City.
Yeah.
So first day, initial contact, no intel saying that the NVA had dug in. And it sounds like they did from their perspective, an incredible job of developing things like overlapping fields of fire, establishing kill boxes. Like they were ready for you guys in the city.
Well, I didn't know it then, but they mocked up the battle. They had every building plotted. And, they had people within the city already, to implement the plan. And when we went in with Alpha and with my company, Gulf 25, it was a total of about 300 Marines. There was a reinforced division within the city. They had 2 regiments in reserve in the hills. So we were very vastly outnumbered, out-weaponed, which that was the first time I had ever run into that in Vietnam, that we didn't have fire superiority. And for the first 5 days before they lifted the rules of engagement, we were just going with our rifles. And, that was it. We couldn't use artillery. Planes couldn't fly because it was at the end of a typhoon and it was just socked in. And it was the 5th or the 6th before they finally relaxed it and let us use some mortars. It
like just like company organic mortars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the quarters were so tight, that artillery would have probably taken more of us out than them. Especially, the big guns firing offshore in. But no, it was nightmarish for sure.
I'm going to be honest with you, sir. That is the most hellish 96 hours I've ever heard in my life. So initial entry, massive resistance. You ronned at the MACV compound.
Yes.
You didn't go out that night because because they attacked you guys.
Right.
And thus probably saved your life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Then it took 2 days to move 200 yards.
Yes.
Through the city. That's incredible and ridiculous number all at the same time. You get to the university. which is only a city block sized, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you experience a full day of close quarters combat within the university.
Yes.
And that was 4 days.
Yeah.
That's,
And
go ahead, please.
then from there, we went and had to take and go to the prison. From the prison, which took a day, then we went to this large hospital complex, which took us 2 days to take and clear out. So it's everything took a vast amount of time, because going into rooms, any place that you think a human could hide, you would have to take and look secure and then move.
At this time, was the company receiving any reinforcements? I mean, you guys were down at a minimum 30 Marines.
Alpha 1-1 was at about 68% casualty rate then.
Oh.
For the battle, they would be at 135%. My unit for the battle was at 132%. By the time we got done in the university and started moving on the prison and on the hospital, I would say that we had probably lost about 65 to 70% of our company. We didn't start getting any replacements in until February 9th. And
which is how many days into the battle was that?
10 days. January 31st, 1968 was the first day. And it was 75 that come in, because we had lost our platoon commander. So the lieutenant was coming in with these other guys, took over the platoon, my platoon. And I think at about that point, we had about 19 men out of a 50-man platoon. So
that's just put things in perspective for anybody listening. Those types of casualty numbers, a third of your casualties would have rendered a company combat ineffective. Combat ineffective nowadays. Just pull back. You don't meet first off, you guys didn't even come close to meeting the current engagement ratios that the DoD employs. You guys were obviously outnumbered and outgunned with an enemy that had thoroughly prepared their battle space. But once you guys started taking those casualties, I mean, is it safe to assume you guys were just committed at this point? You didn't want to pull units back, because the second that you would have, I mean, would you have lost that ground? I guess that's my underlying question.
We were more or less losing it as we went along. They were backfilling in back of us. So yeah, it just, we were at a point where we couldn't do anything but fight forward and take care of the flank at the same time. 2nd of February, we got a company that came in. Well, on your replacements, but we had Fox 25 come in and then Hotel 25 come in. And by the time they come in with the full companies, we probably had 450, 500 Marines on the ground there. Within a couple of days, Fox and Hotel, their casualties started catching up with us. And they went through in the hotel. Well, Golf and Hotel companies were the ones that were responsible for the university. And it just, you fought for your survival. You fought, for the Marine on your left and on your right. And you just fought through. You really didn't give much thought to it other than, don't let me be next.
Ethos kind of goes out the window. Isn't it funny how that happens?
Yeah.
Ethos leaves. It's fleeting. But what replaces it is it's you and the guy to the left and right of you.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, Hue City is, Fallujah was terrible. Fallujah is known house to house, but it was well documented. Hue City continues to be the example of military operations in urban terrain within the military side of the house, but I don't think that the civilian side has ever heard the story. And I have never heard a personal story from the ground. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. And that's coming from somebody in the military, somebody that considers himself somewhat well-read. You had, we're looking at 9 days of fighting. And you guys went in how many? Initially, 2 companies. That was it?
Yes.
2 companies to take a city.
Yeah.
Why wasn't intelligence? Did Intel drop the ball? Was it a command failure of sending like an entire battalion to take a city that was obviously reinforced? I know you're speculating, but what do you think happened there?
There was no intelligence, and which is strange in itself because, I've studied this thing every which way since, I got home. And it was the whole country. It wasn't just Hue City, every big city, every little small hamlet. But Hue was their key. They thought that if they took and controlled Hue and they bled us to death, that it would turn the people into their favorite and suppress the invaders. And it worked for them on a propaganda scale because with what was coming back to the people in the United States, on tapes at the dinner hour, showing all the carnage, showing, bodies of Americans laying in the street, seeing pools of blood, seeing civilians around dead, the enemy dead. It quickly turned the war and the propaganda machine at home. And it was probably the downfall of President Johnson because Walter Cronkite went on TV and said that it was an unwinnable war. And shortly after that, Johnson said that he wouldn't run for president. He wouldn't accept his party's nomination if he was nominated. So from that perspective, it was very efficient. And, you know, that part we couldn't have anything to do with, but you'd think that with the hundreds of thousands of troops that they moved from North Vietnam clean down to the lower end of Vietnam and South Vietnam, Saigon, and that somebody could have accidentally seen that. I mean, I know we didn't have the eyes in the sky, but, you know, we had recon out there. We had, you know, other forces out there, LARPs and such, that, you know, you'd think that somebody accidentally would have, you know, stumbled upon that many people moving. And yeah, it was through other countries, you know, Laos and Cambodia, but, you know, still. So what actually went wrong or what didn't get conveyed, you know, was something else. But, you know, their resolve to, you know, be more friendly to the city than us, you know, wasn't the best of things. And I know that troops run into it in Iraq too. You know, there's certain places that you couldn't go, certain places you couldn't discharge your weapon, and, you know, and unfortunately, war doesn't change.
No, and no, truer words have never been spoken. But I think Hue City kind of stands alone, just because it was just two companies. Operation Phantom Fury was a massive operation, and it's rare nowadays, you know, that those massive urban campaigns. That wasn't even my war. My war came later. It was Syria. That it wasn't really an urban environment. So it kind of it maintains, I don't want to say a novel status, but it maintains a unique status. Urban combat is nasty. Everybody knows that. You know, we've all read the accounts from Fallujah. We've all read the accounts from Baghdad. But Hue, I think, because there's still a lot of mystery surrounding it, and it's not because nobody has recorded it. It just hasn't been properly conveyed, which was the whole reason I wanted you on here, was because, you know, that's an incredible story. That's a totally unique story. I mean, the invasion of the city started with two companies, and both companies lost half of their men. You know, who is going to tell that story other than you? Like, that's where we are in coverage of that period of time.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult the first time I tried to tell it. But over 5-6 years that I've been doing it, I don't want to say it gets any easier, but it gets slower in my head, you know, the details flashing. You know, and I did an interview for USA Today for one of their publications, and talking about the mental aspects of it, you know, and I kind of like your mind's on a super highway and you're on a rural road trying to filter it all out. And that process is slowed down, you know. I mean, the pictures, the memories, and that are there and always going to be there. And, you know, it's just, I probably survived to take and do this. You know, that's the only thing that I could ever think of, because it wasn't that I was any bigger, stronger, faster, or smarter than anybody else. But somebody watched over me.
Oh, somebody had to tell the story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
And there aren't that many of us left now.
No, that's why this is so important. Honestly, it is. It's something that's glossed over in our education system. It's, if it rates a couple days, it rates a couple days. But I don't know if it was because of the public's opinion of the war, that even though that was past behavior, it seemed to dictate our understanding of that entire period.
Yes.
That, like, we couldn't shake the stench of that shame. And I don't know if it was because we are embarrassed at the way we behaved as a nation, that we just kind of brush it aside, or if it's something else, but I don't know what it is.
I know I went back to Vietnam for the 50th anniversary of the battle because I knew that there was nothing going to be done in this country for it. You know, so me and a bunch of the guys that fought there went back for the 50th anniversary. We actually got a very warm reception because their part was celebrating their 50th year of it too. And people there just treated us like gold. You know, they didn't refer to it as the Vietnam War, as the American War. So, and there's very few people in Vietnam my age, especially in the South. You know, either when communists took over and they killed them, interned them, or whatever, but you see very, very few people in their 70s until you get up north in Hanoi and that.
I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, I think there's always that mutual respect of a past foe, of you returning just to pay tribute. The fact that, you know, 50 years on, we can't remember one of the, you know, the bloodiest 48 or 72 hour period in the, you know, the United States military, you know, outside of certain choice events. Again, I don't know what it is that we just continually fail in honoring those. But at the end of the day, it's an important story to tell, and I cannot thank you enough for telling it. That was hands down the most harrowing tale I've ever heard out of the Vietnam War. And as I've moved forward and I've started to reach out to other Vietnam vets, including others that I know outside of what I do here, I've heard stories kind of, you know, throughout the years, but I've never heard an in-depth explanation of what happened. And that's what we need to know. That's what we need to hear at this point. So I cannot thank you enough, because you're not only you're doing us a service, but you're doing the Marines who died in Hue City a huge service.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great being on with you.
It was. Mr. Haught, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I can't thank you enough for sharing that story. And if I could say one thing, I would say welcome home.
Thank you.
Take care, sir.
Thank you.